Finally, you'll be glad to know we have the European Central Bank, and it's composed of staff. So not specifically any ministers who are appointed, but just a bunch of staff, and specifically 3,500 all across Europe, including bankers and advisors and economists. And that's Christine Lagarde. She is the president of the bank just now. And their role is to regulate the Eurozone, which consists of 19 member states who use the euro as their currency. I did a year abroad in Germany in my third year of university, and it was in a city called Mainz, which is about 30 minutes train ride away from Frankfurt. And Frankfurt hosts the European Central Bank. And so I was lucky enough to be part of a group who got a tour from an economist at the ECB. And as you walk into the ECB, what you'll see is that there is a museum on your left-hand side on the ground floor, which kind of just details the history of the bank and what its main aims are, its objectives, and how it's changed people's lives and stuff. But there was one statistic that kept coming up over and over again when I was doing this tour, and it was literally plastered everywhere. And this was that inflation has to be kept at around 2%. And that is one of the main targets of the ECB. You might be wondering, well, why is inflation such an obsession for the EU? Well, the reason for this is that, so inflation has tended to go up every single year since the Industrial Revolution. And the problem is when inflation goes up a little bit too much, let's say 10% or 20%, things, that's products, get too expensive. And so if you take the average price of products, you have a kind of set price and you know what you're going to get next year. If next year you realize actually that all the products that you're buying have gone more expensive, yet your wages, the money coming in has stagnated. Well, what that does, that causes a lot of resentment between people. And when you have the EU, which is full of over 300 million people, if inflation gets out of control and yet wages stagnate, what you actually have is a bunch of people who begin to get very, very angry with the institutions and the elites in Europe and in their governments. And what that can do is when people get really angry and they can no longer afford essentials like food and sanitary equipment, that can breed hate and anger, resentment, and that could topple the entire system itself. So it's really, really important for the EU to work on keeping economic inflation at constant rates so that people aren't surprised year on year, because the EU then lose legitimacy and that can result in the downfall of the entire system. So you can understand why this is such a key target. It's more than just economics. This is about everything that underpins society.